of 2011s, in a world of Glock, SIG, and every other striker-fired, high-capacity handgun, does the 1911 still serve a purpose? Does it still hold its place in the handgun market? Well, today, we're going to be shooting it, and we're going to be giving our honest opinions on that. I personally grew up shooting the 1911. This was one of the first handguns that I shot. This was the handgun that I was trained on. My dad is a super big 1911 guy. So, you know, that's what I was trained on growing up. I love the triggers on these things. I love the weight on these things. And I love the fact that it shoots the Lord's Caliber 45 ACP, the big boy round. The round that won us 2 world wars, as they like to say. So does it stand up against your modern striker-fired polymer handguns, or even the new 2011s on the market, which are kind of a mix between, you know, the polymer striker-fired handguns and a 1911. So today, guys, out here on the range today, we have this Springfield 1911. This is the tactical model, the Operator tactical model. It does shoot 45 ACP, and this is a full-size handgun. So what you get in this over something like your standard 1911 GI model is you do get some nicer sights. You do get a 3-dot system, you know, over your GI models. You do get a really nice skeletonized trigger. You do get a rail as well for a light, and you get these fancy looking grips. So as it comes to 1911s, there's not much that you can really customize on these guns. A lot of them don't come with red dot cuts, and a lot of them look very, very similar. So a lot of the differences between the 1911s come with reliability, tolerances, fit and finish, and just little fancy things like that. Design. I would say Springfield is one of the better manufacturers out there when it comes to 1911s. They've been making 1911s for a long time, and in my experience, Springfield 1911s are pretty good quality, and they don't have a lot of problems. I've shot everything from, you know, their smaller, like commander size Springfield 1911s to a few of their full size Springfield 1911s, and I've owned quite a few of them. So today, like I said, we do have the Operator out here because since this is a tactical model, you know, this has more of a chance to compete in today's market than something like a GI model that you get from something like Rock Island Armory or something like that. I do believe these guns run somewhere around $1,000, but overall what you get for that price for a 1911 is pretty good. However, I do think that 1911s are expensive for what they are when you take in consideration the round capacity and things like that. I do like what Gerson and TSAS have done since they came into the market. These are both like Turkish companies. I believe they're ran by Americans who manufacture the guns in Turkey, but since they have came on the market, they've definitely introduced some quality handguns as it pertains to the 1911 platform for a good quality price. That, in my experience, has also been reliable. So we'll probably bring out a few of those later, but today, guys, you know, just for the sake of this video, when we're talking about 1911s, I wanted to bring out a more quality firearm. So we did bring out the Springfield. I know there's a lot of people out there, you know, people who are super into 1911s who say that you need a Nighthawk or you need one of these super high-end 1911s. I don't have any experience with those, but in my experience, you know, a Springfield usually will serve you pretty well. So today, guys, we're just going to be kind of shooting it, giving our opinions on, you know, how it compares to your modern striker-fired handguns or even some of the 2011s on the market, the high-capacity 9mm variants of these guns, and kind of what purpose we think that these guns still serve in the community as far as it goes for like personal defense or, you know, things like that. So we're going to go ahead and get started with it. I'm going to load her up and we're going to take some shots. So we got the big boy rounds, the Lord's Caliber 45 ACP. Guys, we're going to release a shirt with our clothing brand, the Modern Day Crusader. I don't have one on today. They're in the wash. I need to wash them and get them ready. However, if you guys watch our other videos, we're coming out with a Christian-oriented clothing brand. We're going to make a shirt, and it will be up when we drop the website in the clothing brand with a Lord's Caliber 45 ACP design. So please stay tuned to that. If you're a Christian, you're into guns in the tactical space, or you just want to rep it going to the gym, just showing something that you're a warrior of God on your clothing, then stay tuned and stay tuned for the drop. Hit that subscribe button, like, and follow us because we will be having that drop. And the shirts are really cool. There's nobody else in the market that is going to be touching our brand. So now my experience with 1911s, like I said, goes back to all the way when I was a child. My dad was an instructor, so I started shooting at a very early age, and one of the first guns that I became accustomed to was the 1911. However, the last few years, just to be completely honest with you guys, I haven't shot 1911s a lot. They're not a gun that I carry out to the range a lot. 45's not as cheap as 9mm, so just keep that in mind. That is probably one of the downsides to 45 ACP. However, I have shot a lot of 2011s over the past few years. Everything from like the Mac, their Staccato clone, the Springfield Prodigy, and a few others. So I have shot many 2011s recently. So this is gonna be the first time I've shot a 1911 in quite some time, because I haven't brought one out in the range in a while. So this is really gonna be almost an unbiased opinion, because I haven't shot one of these in a long time. So we'll see how I do with the 45 ACP full-size 1911. The first thing that we're going to be talking about today, guys, is accuracy. And I think that is one place the 1911 really excels. One of the main reasons when I first started shooting handguns that I went to the 1911 instead of a Glock, because I remember specifically when I was younger shooting a 1911 and then shooting a Glock, and I was way more accurate with the 1911, even though it was a bigger caliber round than the Glock, and it was mainly because of the trigger. As a new shooter, it was a lot harder for me to grasp you know, the trigger on the Glock with the safety, because there was just a lot more mush and I would flinch a lot more. The one big thing about 1911s is they have that really butter crisp trigger, because you got that single action hammer fired trigger. It doesn't get much better than triggers when it comes to 1911. So first, let's talk about marksmanship and accuracy. I haven't shot one of these in a long time, so we're just gonna put some groups here at the paper and see how well that I do. That's not bad for the first.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, that's not bad for, I mean, look, I'm not lying to you guys. It's been a while since I've shot a full-size 1911, and that feels really good. It feels just like I remember. I mean, I put like 2 shots here, 2 shots here, and then maybe 1 shot there. I mean, that's pretty tight, and I think I can tighten it up even more. So another thing I will say about 1911s is that they're just solid guns, right? Not that, you know, Glocks break or anything like that, but this is a full steel gun. So there might not be a lot of rounds in the magazine, but if you run out of rounds, you can toss this gun at somebody and probably knock them the fuck out. So I'm gonna take some shots to the head now and just see how well we can group them. We're really at, right now, we're really at probably about 5 to 7 yards. So yeah, we're not that far. Self-defense distance. I pulled one.
The last one you pulled.
I pulled
one. The rest of them were right on top of one another.
I mean, I'm shooting a little bit low left notoriously, but not as much as I would with a polymer gun. I mean, the trigger's so good. I think one of the biggest things with a lot of the polymer guns and the striker fired guns is that for new shooters, even me, I've been shooting for years. To give you guys, you know, just a little bit of background for me, I mean, I've been shooting guns since I was like 10 or 12 years old, handguns, right? Like I said, my dad was an instructor, so I've been shooting for a long time, but notoriously, especially when I start on a new polymer gun or a gun that I haven't shot in a long time, then I have to correct my grip in order to not shoot low left. I'm already super close here, and I just started shooting this handgun again. I mean, just the grip angle that you have in a 1911 with that trigger, it makes these guns so easy to be accurate with, and I would say that's one of the pros to a 1911. If you get something like this, especially now, you can get even like comped models, 1911s. I mean, you're looking at a very accurate platform. I mean, 1911s are super accurate, and if you're looking for like specifically marksmanship style shooting with a handgun or really trying to reach out, I think a full-size 1911 would definitely be a viable option if that's, you know, specifically what you're going for. If you want something that you can stretch out to 25 yards with and still be pretty accurate with, it's very hard to beat a 1911. So now we're gonna step back a little bit and see what we can do. We'll take it to 15 and then we'll take it to 25. I'm very curious to see what this does at 25, because me personally, I like to have a red dot on all my polymer guns when I'm shooting at 25, because it does get a little bit difficult when you get out there with iron sights with a polymer handgun. So I really want to see how this performs. All right, now we're back a little bit at like 15 or so, something like that. And let's see how well we can group it. I'm just gonna aim center mass. I pulled one. Oh, I think we had a malfunction. Oh, I'm out. Okay, just didn't lock back.
Okay.
And that could have been me. I could have had my finger on it, but then again, I've had other 1911s that do that too. I pulled 2 of them. I'm not super happy with that, but I got a few close to the bullseye here. Let's take one more and see what happens. Better group, but we also didn't lock back on empty again. Could be a mag problem too, though. Or it could be the way, it could be my finger.
Yeah, just
sometimes I do that. Yeah, we put all 3 of them right there. That was a better group for sure, but we're a little bit left. All right, now we took it back to 25 yards. This is very far for iron sights. You can get 2011s and 1911s now with a red dot cut on them. So, you know, with that being said, you put a red dot on something like this, you know, you're probably gonna be able to hit shots no problem at 25. So with that being said, just keep that in mind. However, this one doesn't. I mean, this is a over $1,000 1911 and it doesn't have a red dot cut. Most of them don't. 1911s, 2011s on the other hand, especially a lot of the newer ones coming out from some of the cheaper companies, Garson, Tisas, a lot of them have red dot cuts. So just keep that in mind. One here.
Yeah, that's new. 100%.
Here.
Yeah.
And then here.
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I mean, not great, but 25 yards is hard. Look at this shit. The damn 45. Breaking that wood. Yeah, don't get hit with the 45 ACP. Even a full metal jacket. Probably not going to be a good day for you. So what I will say is that this gun is definitely pretty accurate for what it is. I mean, just out of the box, haven't shot one in quite some time, and these guns are definitely pretty accurate. And I think that is definitely something that this gun fulfills very well, is being a marksmanship pistol, especially if you put a comp on it, you put a red dot on it. You can definitely trick them out now. There's a lot of different options out there. You can definitely set these up to be just, you know, pack drivers for what they are. Now, I do want to compare this to a 2011 because most of my experience in the last few years has been shooting 2011s. I don't shoot a lot of 45 anymore because I don't keep it on hand, so I really bring my 1911s out to the range. However, what I will say is that you know, 2011s do have a significant amount of less recoil than the 45 in most platforms. However, in the 1911, it being a steel frame gun, I think that these guns handle 45 very, very well. And what I've seen is in a lot of the 2011s, especially some of the cheaper ones like the Prodigy and things like that, because of the 1911 being a, you know, a smaller round, a lot of times you'll see issues with the slide not seating correctly and things like that. But I will say that, you know, those guns are probably even more accurate than the 45, given that there's less recoil with the same amount of weight. So it really just depends on what your cup of tea is there when it comes to 45 versus 9mm. If you want the heavier hitting round, then obviously 45 is going to be the way to go. Or if you don't want the 45 and you're just looking for straight pinpoint accuracy, then you know, you could go with something like a 9mm. They also do make these guns, like single stack ones, also like 1911s and 9mm as well. I know Springfield has a few out there, and they definitely cut down on the recoil a little bit. But I think personally, if you're gonna buy a 1911, a full-size 1911, these were designed to be in the Lord's caliber 45 ACP. It just feels so great, and there's no other 45 ACP handgun on the market that compares to a 1911. So when we're talking about 45 caliber handguns, I think if I'm looking for a 45 ACP caliber handgun, I'm going with a 1911, because let's be honest, 45 caliber for a handgun round is huge. That's a very heavy projectile. I mean, you can get 230 grain projectiles, and you can go even heavier than that or lighter than that. With that being said, you know, a lot of the polymer guns, I know there's the FNX 45, you know, there's a few others out there on the market. I've even had some experience with like the HK 45, and none of them mitigate the recoil or feel as smooth as a 1911. You definitely can feel them in the grip. They're definitely not as comfortable to shoot, and they're nowhere near as accurate. So when it comes to a accurate 45 caliber handgun, I think the 1911 is the king. I know FN has a lot of good options out there on the market for carry now, as in like the 545, and they also have the FNX, and they're really good for round capacity, so maybe for something like a duty gun or a carry gun. But for like a marksman gun, I don't think for 45 caliber handguns it gets any better than the 1911. But that's just my personal opinion. I have had experience with some FNs and some HKs that are in 45, and I've just never liked them as much as the old reliable, the 1911. Now, just touching real quick on the carry side of things. When we talk about carry guns, I do want to get into that, right? Because let's be honest, I think we can all address the elephant in the room. Mag capacity. These only hold 7 to 8 rounds in your standard size magazine, depending on what size grip that you have. And in my opinion, I really don't think that's enough. If you guys have watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I advocate for over 10 rounds. I know a lot of you might be saying right now, you know, well, I feel comfortable with my handgun and it only carries 8 rounds or 10 rounds or whatever the case may be. But you have to realize, if you're one of these older guys and you grew up in the time frame where the probability of you needing over 10 rounds for any situation was significantly lower, then you might not understand that, you know, we live in a much, much different world now. Gang violence has increased. The amount of home invasions have increased. We can agree that people in my generation and younger, there's a lot of mental illness. There's a lot of people who probably shouldn't have guns at all, but they do have guns. And the probability of you needing more than 10 rounds has increased now more than ever. So with that being said, you know, I know a lot of older guys, you know, they'll carry little 1911s or they'll carry little pocket pistols that don't carry more than 10 rounds. But you guys grew up in a different era than we do nowadays. When I grew up, you know, there was kids in high school with firearms that shouldn't have had firearms, in gangs and things like that. Glocks with 33 round magazines and switches on them to just dump full auto into somebody's house. So nowadays, if you do get in a gunfight or somebody's holding you up or robbing you and you really absolutely need to use this gun, God forbid, 7 to 8 rounds to me in today's time is just not going to do it. Plus the 1911 is super heavy, right? And then when you have options like a 2011 and even 2011s with shorter barrels so they're more concealable, I don't think that a 1911 is really going to be a good option for a carry gun. I think these are really good range guns, but I don't think that they're great carry guns unless we're talking about ultra compact guns, right? Like your subcompact handguns. I think I had a Rock Island, and it was the carry version. It was a very small, it was maybe like a 3 or 4 inch barrel, and it had, I think it carried somewhere around 7 rounds or something like that. One less than a full size. When you have something like that, and you're gonna be below 10 rounds anyway in your carry gun, whether it's 9mm or 45 ACP, in those cases, then I would say a 1911 would be an option. When you compare a compact 1911 that's a full steel frame with 7 rounds versus something that is the same size and 9mm but a polymer frame gun that carries 8 or 9 rounds, then a lot of times the smaller 1911 will shoot better than that snappy polymer gun because of the extra weight. So in those cases, the 45, even though it's a bigger bullet and you carry less rounds, it may shoot better than that compact 9mm that you're carrying, because those compact 9mm can be very, very snappy. So when you got a full heavy small 1911 that carries maybe 1 or 2 rounds less than a compact 9mm handgun, then in that case it may actually make sense. You get a bigger bullet, more lethal, bigger hole, hits harder, and the gun shoots relatively similar, if not better, than a compact 9mm of the same size. So when you get down to like the micro guns, the subcompacts, I think the 1911s actually can play a good role there, as long as you find a reliable one. And that is important, because 1911s are not made equally. I can tell you from having a lot of the cheaper ones and then being able to shoot a lot of the higher end ones, you know, these are all steel guns. So the tolerances are not like a Glock. They're not super loose. So you need to make sure that you're testing your 1911 1911 and testing the ammo that you're carrying in it, because especially with some of the cheaper ones like their Gassans and things like that, a lot of times they don't like to feed certain hollow points. So you just need to make sure that if you are going to carry a 1911, in this instance it's a compact one that's reliable. Be mindful that if you are going to carry a 1911 that you're going to have to clean it a lot more often than, you know, a Glock or anything like that, because the tolerances are tighter, and whenever these start to gum up a little bit, they're going to be a little bit harder to shoot. So another thing I would like to add real quick that I forgot to mention when we're talking about subcompact handguns with a 45 1911 versus a, you know, subcompact 9mm polymer handgun is also the velocity, right? With subcompact 9mm handguns, when you're getting to a super short barrel, something like a 2 to 3 inch barrel, a lot of the issue with those is that, you know, it doesn't get as much velocity as a 4 or 5 inch barrel. So a lot of times the hollow points are much less effective and much less likely to expand when they hit whatever you're aiming at. So with a 45, my argument there would be, you know, you got a 45 caliber bullet. You don't necessarily have to rely on the expansion for it to do its job. So I would say that's also a pro when we talk about subcompact guns when it comes to 45 ACP 1911.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Okay. I counted right. It's just it didn't lock back on empty. That was really good. I mean, just like I said, I haven't shot a 1911 in quite some time, and being able to, at that distance, that's like 10, 12 yards, being able to put shots on target, put 2 shots here. Looks like I put here 1, 2. So, you know, I wasn't going super quick. We're gonna speed up here in just a second. Looks like I put 1 there.
And one right below it, I think.
Yeah, 1 right there. So, I mean, that's close. We're gonna clean it up a little bit and we're gonna keep going with it. Not saying you couldn't use this in a combative situation or a self-defense situation, but I mean, a 1911 will work. You'll just, in my opinion, I think you need to carry more than 1 mag. But the biggest downside is let's say you have 7 or 8 round magazines. I mean, with 2 mags, you're carrying 14 rounds, 15 rounds, and a Glock 19, I mean, your 1 mag has 15 rounds. So, you know, realistically, a good 9mm hollow point will do its job, right? So, you know, you can compare the size, but, you know, at the end of the day, these rounds, even a 9mm or 45, they're not going fast enough to where one does like a crazy significant amount of damage over the other. If you look at some of Grand Thumb's videos, Grand Thumb has done some videos on comparing 45, like hollow points, to 9mm, and the performance is, you know, relatively similar. So,
shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
oh,
First malfunction.
folks, first malfunction.
Failure to eject.
Once 1911s start to get gummed up, this is a problem you'll see pretty often too. Now I did pull 1 there, but it looks like we put another one here. So I did pull 1.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
We pulled 1 low though that time, right here. But it looks like we put another one here. Definitely opening that up, and then the 2 headshots. So once you speed things up, guys, it takes a while to get good with it. I would say that, you know, 2011 you can definitely run a little bit faster. I would say that's one downside to 45 ACP. If you want a gun that's gonna run really fast and still be accurate, you want something like a 2011 for sure, because 45, it definitely has some more lift there, so your reset to get back on target is going to be a little bit harder to find, because while you're having more climb and you're coming back on target, you have to reset for a second. So if you're like me and you don't wait for the full reset, you're going to pull some shots for sure, because see, I'm a little bit impatient, and that's my problem. But you just have to train through those things. Not saying you can't be somewhat quick with a 45 ACP, but the 9mm version of the 1911, the 2011, is definitely going to be a faster gun. You're going to be able to shoot a lot faster because it's a lower recoiling round. So a lot of people like these fast guns. I know that's kind of a new thing. Like a competition gun, for example, you're going to want something like a 2011, because if you look at what most people are running now for competitions, it's either some sort of polymer gun like a custom Glock or something like that, or it's some sort of 2011. A lot of people are running 2011s for competition, and that's because they're accurate, because they run off the same system as a 1911 with the trigger system and the frame and everything. mixed with the fact that they're real fast because they're 9mm instead of 45. So, swinging.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
These two, obviously. And then body here. Is it this one?
I think so.
One of those, and then there should be one more. I think it's one of these.
Might be that one or the one right above the bullseye.
Yeah. Either way, pretty good. What I will say about this gun, and when we're talking about it being a carry gun, is I guess it really actually depends on where you live as well. Because in a use case where you live in bear country, or you live in one of these places like maybe out in the mountains or something like that where you got some big game out there and your probability of running into a stray animal that would want to eat you is high, then maybe it does make sense to carry a 1911, right? It's a big heavy bullet, so you know it does have a lot of penetration, and you know maybe that's something you're looking for. So in those cases, when I would say you're out in bear country or something like that, you know, where a lot of people will carry like a 357 Magnum revolver or 44 Magnum, then the 45 ACP is a nice round for that as well, right? Or the 1911 platform. I mean, you can get these in 10mm as well, and that's one place I think the 1911 excels as well. I did own the T-Sauce Night Stalker for a while in 10mm, just to try it out. I really wanted to try out a 10mm 1911, and those things shoot great as well. They're very similar to a 45 in terms of recoil. It may be even a little bit less since the bullet's a little bit smaller. However, you know, I think the 1911 is a great platform for 10mm as well. So when we're talking about calibers like 45 and 10 mil, as I was saying earlier, I think that the 1911 is the king of the 45 ACP platform. I would also argue that the 1911 is a king in the 10mm space as well, because if you look at the other manufacturers who make 10mm handguns, you know, ones like Smith & Wesson or FN, you know, they have the FN 510 as well. You know, the FN 510 is not going to shoot as smooth as something like this. Not with a polymer frame. Those are very heavy recoiling loads, and you can get some very heavy recoiling loads for 10mm, and you want something that's going to fire them without you having to absorb all the recoil in your hand. So a steel frame goes a long way with that. I personally just really like steel frame guns. You know, not for carry, of course, because that makes them super heavy, but when it comes to marksman guns or guns that I like to take out on the range, steel frame handguns, I just have a love for them. I mean, like I said, grew up on the 1911, was trained on the 1911, and you know, it's just the way that they mitigate a lot of the recoil, it makes you a better shooter a lot of the times when you have a steel frame gun. From my experience, any higher caliber round, the 1911 just handles them very, very well.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep. Bullseye.
That was pretty good.
You hit center bullseye on the left.
Yeah, right here. Getting better, and just, you know, 50 rounds later, that's all it took. Been a while since I shot a 1911, but it feels so familiar. I feel so at home with it, so that's what I'll say. Just to close this out, guys, overall, I will always have a love for the 1911, but as it pertains to modern, like, combat handguns, when we talk about like something like the military would carry or something that you might carry every day for your EDC or whatnot, I don't think the 1911 really serves that purpose anymore. And that's because, you know, with modern technology and, you know, different engineering, high capacity magazines, high capacity handguns, things like that, that recoil less, and just the different types of systems now to mitigate that recoil, the 1911, in my opinion, has kind of been phased out in that regard. However, I still think that the 1911 is superior in some other places depending on what you're looking for. And those places being, you know, like we said, marksmanship. They're super accurate guns. If you want something to take out to the range, it's going to be super fun to shoot. It's going to hit real hard and going to be really accurate because of the trigger and the weight of this gun and just the grip angle and the ergonomics. Then the 1911 will definitely be an option that you can look at. Or if you're looking for something that might be, you know, subcompact with a 2 or 3 inch barrel, I think the 45 ACP serves a good place there because it is a heavier projectile, so you don't have to rely on velocity as much. And also, if you're in bear country or if you're up in the mountains or something like that, I definitely think that the 1911, you know, could serve a purpose of carry in one of those areas if you're up in the mountains. I would just recommend carrying more than one mag just in case you may need it. But I know for those people up there, a lot of times they do like to carry higher caliber handguns, and those, in my opinion, have been the most comfortable to shoot in a semi-automatic platform in the 1911. 10 millimeter, 45, even sometimes 357 you can find a 1911 chambered in. And in my opinion, with 45 and 10 millimeter, this gun handles it very, very well. So while this doesn't, in my opinion, for competition, stack up against something like a 2011, and in my opinion, for carry, it doesn't stack up to something like even the Glock 19, you know, for those specific, you know, instances, I would say that the 1911 still does have its place in the gun community. And overall, you know, it did also win 2 world wars, so that's a thing, right? It's just a iconic piece to have. And let's be honest, this is a sexy gun, right? The skeletonized trigger, you know, the customizable grips. I mean, this is a really, really good looking firearm, and something that I would recommend everybody at least having one of in your collection, because the 1911 is a proven platform. There are some bad ones out there though, so just be careful, do your research before you buy them, and test it, train with it. And, you know, overall, I think that, you know, it does still serve a purpose when it comes to handguns. Now, with that being said, if you do carry a 1911 out there, don't get me wrong, I'm not hitting on you at all. I think as long as you're carrying a firearm and you train with it and you get good with it, those are the most important things, right? Because when it comes to self-defense, you know, it doesn't matter if you're carrying a Glock 19 or a superior firearm. If you haven't trained with it, you're not going to be very efficient. And just adding on to that, when we're talking about self-defense, it's not all about the gun you're carrying, guys. Not all self-defense situations, you know, you'll even have the chance to pull your firearm, or maybe you don't have it on you because you left it at home. You know, you also need to make sure you are staying in the best physical shape that you possibly can, because you don't want to get stuck in a situation where you cannot defend your life because somebody is overpowering you, you don't know how to fight, things like that. So I would always recommend, even you gun guys out there, because I know some of you are a little bit stubborn about it, but go learn how to fight, go take an MMA class, jiu-jitsu, something like that, so you also know how to defend yourself with your hands in the case that you may not be able to get to your firearm or you do not have one on you. Because everybody says it would never happen, they'll never catch me lacking, yada yada yada, until the day that it happens. So with that being said, make sure you're good in that regard, and also make sure that you are good spiritually, because the reality of the situation is people get shot, they get killed all the time, and that is a terrible situation, and nobody expects it to happen. So in that situation, you want to make sure that you are right with the Lord, and that you are right spiritually with you know, whatever God or whatever you believe in, right? You want to make sure that you are confident in your spirituality on where you're going to go one day if you do meet your demise. With all that being said, guys, that pretty much concludes the video for me today. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. Let us know what you think about the 1911. Let us know if you still think that it's a viable option for today, and let us know what you carry in the comments down below. We can have a civil debate. It really helps the engagement of the channel. I think that YouTube might have just shadow banned us. YouTube is definitely capping gun content. So please support us in any way you can. Like the videos, subscribe, comment, keep the engagement up, so that way we can keep YouTube a gun-friendly place, even though it's kind of already not. But we're going to change the culture. We're going to shift the culture. All right? Gun content is profitable, YouTube. So remember that. So without further ado, guys, that's pretty much all I have for today. Like I said, let us know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.